Hey expats and travelers, today we have Portugal versus Spain on where to live. We have Josh representing Portugal, Tom representing Spain. They're gonna go head to head on 8 different topics. I'm Kalie with Expats Everywhere, and we are going to give them 2 minutes on each topic. Let us know what you think in the comments of where you think is better. Let's go. Let's start with our first topic of food, which is a very important one. Okay guys, go for it.
Well, personally, I think that the Portuguese food is fantastic. I mean, you're gonna find some really hearty meals in Portugal, which I didn't necessarily find in Spain. Spain, the food was a bit light, if you will. Certainly up here in the north, we're heartier people and we like heavier meals. Francesinhas, French fries with everything. I mean, come on, it's an American's dream, isn't it?
I can't take francesinha away from you. That is a golden part of Portuguese cuisine. But you know what, I think in Spain actually there is a lot of hearty food as well, again in the north. Probably a few comparisons we can draw there between North Portugal and North of Spain. The thing I think Spain really stands out with is just the variety you get. So each region has got its own sort of identity when it comes to the cuisine. So, you know, we've got Galicia in the northwest, we've got incredible seafood, really famous for its octopus and all things seafood and fish. You've got the meats that come out of the centre of Spain and sort of the Basque country as well. And then you've got all the cured meats as well, the jamon, the cheeses, which you can find all over the country really. So I think that's really a plus point on the Spain side of things.
I mean, I hear you, but we've got ham too. We definitely have, you beat on codfish. The bacalhau is made, I believe it's 1,001 different ways. How many ways do you make it in Spain?
How many have you actually tried of those 1,001?
Probably 3, but you know, like I've got...
And do you like them?
I've got 998 more to go, so...
That's true, you won't get more.
I better get started.
The cod's very famous. I can't say it's my favourite thing about Portuguese cuisine. I really do like the fish that they do over in Portugal, but overall I think, you know, for me, the Spanish cuisine, you've got the fine dining that you can have. There's a lot of innovative food especially coming out of Barcelona, for example. But you've also just got the simplicity of the tapas and just being able to go out and have a few drinks, a few little plates of food here and there. Just hits the spot every time.
Kalie, what do you think?
Okay, time's up, guys. I think I'm gonna have to give this one to Spain. Tom, that was quite compelling with the variety. Although the fish is good in Portugal because of the coast, I think I'm gonna give it to Spain. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think Spanish food wins on this one for sure.
I'm confident it was Spain, although you did omit one key part of the Portuguese food scene, which is the pastéis de nata, the custard tart, which I can't believe you've overlooked, to be honest.
Well, I didn't want to get into sweets because clearly Portugal would win. I think that would be a wild trump card. No, I think Portuguese pastries are much better than Spanish pastries. That's just me personally.
I'll give you that one. I'll concede that one.
But overall food scene, it's got to be Spain, right?
Yeah, that's up there. Top 3 in the world, I'd say.
Yeah.
That is true though, that it bumps up Portugal, I think, a little bit when you add the pastries.
Not quite enough, but nearly.
Round 1, Tom.
Real quick, we want to update you on a video we recently did about TransferWise. They are now called Wise. Why the name change? Well, it's because they're much more than transfers. They're the international account used by over 10 million people to live, work, travel, and do business around the world, which is great because that is what our channel is all about. Let's go ahead and move on to our second topic, which I think is also popular, the wine. Okay, Tom, we'll start with you. How's the Spanish wine?
The Spanish wine is superb. I'm not a wine connoisseur by any stretch of the imagination, but the value and the quality you can get in Spain is excellent. And obviously, I mean, from the red wine point of view, that's probably where I'd say the strength lies, especially, you know, compared to when you're comparing to Portugal. The Rioja and the Ribera, the 2 main types of red wines, which, you know, I think they rule Spain, but they also rule a lot of the world when it comes to wine drinking. And as I said, the value is amazing. You know, you can go to a supermarket and pick up a very, very good bottle of wine for €5 or €6, which you certainly can't do in the UK anyway. In Portugal, I know you can as well.
Yeah, I think that the Spanish wine and the Portuguese wine are fairly similar. I'm very sure that any Portuguese or Spanish person watching this will fight me on that, and I'm really not looking for a fight with them, but I think that both regions or both countries produce great wine and have a wide variety in terms of their regions. I personally think because Portuguese wine is marginally lower priced, I think it wins because of that, because the wine quality is basically the same, and you're going to get it for a bit less here in Portugal. And you know something that most of the world doesn't know, which is Portuguese wine is phenomenal. So you can always play that kind of little, that little card there and be like, oh yeah, but have you had Portuguese wine? Have you had the Douro wine? Have you had wine from Alentejo? And they're like, wait, I thought it was Alentejo. And it's like, no, it's a Portuguese word.
I think I'm going to betray myself here in terms of the Spain-Portugal divide. So there are a couple of things that really stand out for me from the Portugal side of things as well, which are the port wines, so the fortified, slightly sweeter wines. And I know you guys living in Porto, I obviously lived there as well for a bit. I could spend a lot of time in those wine cellars doing those tastings.
No, exactly.
Madeira wine as well, similar sort of thing. And then the Vinho Verde, I don't know if you guys have tried that yet. It's more of a summer drink, but the slightly sparkling, fresh white wine or green wine, as they call it.
Yeah,
that's another prize winner, I'd say, on the Portuguese side.
Okay, so funny enough, Tom, you were supposed to be supporting Spanish wine, but you brought up some really good points. So I think after hearing you guys talk about it, although they both are great quality and inexpensive, it sounds like Portugal is the winner for this one because they have just maybe a few more options and maybe a little more inexpensive and maybe a little less known, so that makes it a bit more exciting. You guys let us know what you think, and have you tried Portuguese wine? Have you tried Spanish wine? Can you compare? What do you think?
Tom, I'm really curious about this. How would you compare either port or wine from Madeira to maybe sherry? Do you which one do you think is most like sherry?
I can't say I've drunk that much sherry actually, and that's quite interesting in that I've lived here a couple of times now in Spain, and I don't know, maybe it's a generational drink. Maybe I haven't quite acquired the taste. It's more of a celebration drink, I think, after at Christmas time, at Easter time, people tend to drink it, I assume, whereas in Portugal I think it's more common to find a bottle of port in most households.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, topic number 3 is really important when traveling or living abroad. So let's ask these guys about the language. Josh, we'll start with you.
Oh boy. Here's what I think. I think that Portuguese has an extremely rich language. It's a confusing language in terms of when you hear it, you might actually be listening to Portuguese but not realize it's Portuguese, because there are some sounds that sound very maybe Polish or from one of the maybe Slavic languages, Russian. Yeah, exactly. So for that, it's very interesting. It's very challenging. I think this one is going to be a little difficult for me to debate on because there are so many positives to the Spanish language, not necessarily Spain Spanish, because there are some confusing things about Spain Spanish. But in terms of Portuguese, it's certainly fun trying to dissect the differences between Brazilian Portuguese and European Portuguese.
I'd say if you're going with the objective of learning a language, Spanish, I've learned both languages at university and in the countries, and Spanish is definitely a lot easier to grasp, at least it was in my experience. Written down, they're pretty similar. If you can read one, you can probably read the other without too much difficulty. But then spoken and listening, the Portuguese, especially the Portuguese accent from Portugal, is a little trickier to grasp. But if you like a challenge, then Portuguese would be the one to go for. I would say as well that the level of English in Portugal is a lot higher than it is in Spain. So if you're actually a bit nervous about the language thing and that's something that you want to consider, then Portugal might be a slightly better option in that you'll probably be able to get around a lot easier with English than in Spain, specifically, in some of the smaller cities. And then, I guess if you think about how useful the language is worldwide, I think people get quite surprised that Portuguese is quite highly spoken I'm not sure what it is, sort of the 5th or 6th most widely spoken language in the world. I think I might need to fact check that, but I guess partly because of Brazil, but also some of the other countries that speak it. But Spanish obviously takes the crown there. Again, it's probably in the top 3 or 4 languages most widely spoken. So I think overall we probably, I'd give it to Spain. But Portuguese is a beautiful language as well if you can get the hang of the accent.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the reverse side of it, like you said, is that in Portugal you have more people that speak English, especially at a higher level. I mean, the Portuguese are known for their English proficiency in Europe.
This is a tough one because you guys both brought up some good pros and cons. Spanish, I think, is more widely spoken, but it seems like it's probably easier to learn Portuguese in Portugal because more people speak English and they seem to be a bit nicer and more accommodating and helpful as you try to learn the language. So I think I'm going to give this one a tie. I don't know. It's really close. You guys tell us what you think.
Well, I think just to tip it over the edge, just if I can butt in here,
we might edit this out.
Your last point, Kalie, if you speak Portuguese people, because they speak English so well, they might often just respond in English.
That's right.
They love practicing their English. So actually, you might even find it easy to learn Spanish in Spain because you won't be met by a fluent response in English. And a lot of my Spanish friends shy away from the opportunity to speak English because they've got this thing called vergüenza here. They kind of get a bit embarrassed about speaking English. So anyway, I mean, you can see it both ways, but I think there's some good points for both.
You just have to ask him, ¿Tienes vergüenza?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just accept it.
That's it.
The next topic up is culture. So what do you guys think of the culture? Let's compare those. Josh, let's start with you.
See, this is a difficult one because when we're talking about culture, it's like, what exactly are we talking about? Are we talking about society? Are we talking about history? So I'm gonna dive more in on society, and I may not be able to travel to Spain after I say this, but I just think that Portuguese people are nicer. I think that I tend to find Portuguese people to be a bit warmer and friendlier. I don't know, like better socially. It's very strange. I found a lot of aggression, and maybe that was because the bulk of our experience was in Madrid, and that's a city. So I don't know if it was just the city mentality or if it was actual Spanish mentality coming out where there was a lot of aggressiveness. So that was the kind of the downside. I think the way religion has influenced both cultures, it's fairly similar in the way holidays are celebrated. Both are a very familiar people. They like to be with families. They enjoy that kind of, family unit, and that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. And both countries are great with kids, which at this point in our life is awesome because we have a baby girl.
A beautiful baby girl.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I agree. I think both countries are very sociable countries, full of very friendly people. In Spain, it's interesting you use the word aggressive. I think direct is probably the word I'd use.
Okay. It's because you're living there.
Yes, they're holding me a nice point. Might have to cut that one out. Yes, I think the Spanish can be a little bit more direct rather than aggressive. I personally think they're also very friendly people, but just the way that they use their language, when you go into a bar, you kind of order the barman to pour you a drink.
That's
rather
right.
than asking them nicely and saying please and thank you.
Yes.
And that's not them being rude. It comes across rude as to a Brit like me. He comes over and we're used to saying thank you and please all the time.
Yeah, or an American or a Canadian. Right. That's exactly right. That's a good point.
So, I don't think it's that they are rude. I think they're quite direct in the language they use. But I also agree, that the Portuguese are probably the friendliest nation that I've met. I've never met a rude or unpleasant Portuguese person, and they can be very, very welcoming. But, I think the Spanish as well, in their own right, are very welcoming. From a culture point of view in Spain, I think it is just an incredible country. It's so diverse. Every region has its own identity. We talked about that with the food, but just with the religion, you've got the south of Spain and Andalusia. It's got a lot of Moorish influence.
He's hitting me. Listen, he's hitting me after the bell right here. Come on, jump in, ref. No, Tom, I have to put my defense up. I agree with you though. I think that it's something that Kalie and I have remarked quite a bit is just how diverse Spain is, and it's no knock on Portugal. It's smaller, So, when you get a bit more space, there tends to be a bit more pockets to be able to do your own thing, and I think that's really what's happened to Spain.
So I'm cutting you guys off. Number 4 was culture, and culture is really hard to unpack. So obviously we're only giving 2 minutes for each topic.
Not enough time.
And it's not enough time to talk about the culture. But for this one, I think I'm going to give it to Spain because of the different types of culture in the different regions. And I think that gives them the edge.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have to agree.
I certainly agree on this one.
On to the next topic, which is the climate or the weather. Tom, we'll start with you.
Well, it's not a tricky one. I think this is pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got, again, there's regional differences. The north of Spain, actually, I think coming from abroad, I just assumed the whole of Spain was always sunny and always warm and always lovely. But actually, it gets pretty cold, especially in the centre of, Madrid where I live. It gets pretty cold in the winter. We had a massive snowstorm earlier this year as well. I don't think that's particularly normal, but it does happen. And temperatures can get below 0 centigrade quite regularly in the winter at night time. In the south, obviously, you've got lovely beach weather. Even in the winter, it's still pretty mild. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's pretty similar in Portugal, right?
Yeah. So we talk about this quite a bit, the 300 plus days of sunshine in Portugal. It doesn't actually happen really from like Lisbon on to the north. It's mainly the south that people are talking about, and then obviously the Azores and Madeira as well. But over the whole, I would agree that both are very similar in terms of what the weather and climate is like. For people that want a little more predictability and consistency with the weather, then I would say Portugal is the better option. You're definitely not going to get those snows the way that you would in Spain. I mean, even in Madrid, you guys got snow, which is a bit of an anomaly. But if you go further towards the Pyrenees, is it? Right? Yeah. So if you go further that direction, then you're going to get snow, you're going to get skiing. So if that's your type of thing, then do that. But the majority of people, let's be honest, in Portugal, they live by the coast. So they're very beach-oriented people. They want to be by the water. Personally, I like that. I think it's great. Spring, summer, late fall, you can still be, heading out towards the water and enjoying nice days on the beach when it's sunny and warm. So it's probably a wash because of the similarities in terms of the north is a bit colder, the same way it is in Spain, and the south can get quite hot. I mean, it's not Andalusia type of level in the south here, but it's hot.
The only thing I'd add is if you like spending time in the sea, then Spain is your place, because the Atlantic waters are pretty cold in Portugal. So the sea is a lot warmer in the Mediterranean, especially on the east side of Spain. That's the only difference I'd show, but I think that's pretty well matched.
Right.
It sounds like the climate, the weather is pretty much a tie because these two are neighbors and they're in the same area of the world. They get about the same weather. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a tie.
If you guys are on our premiere, go ahead and put in the comments section what you think about the climate. Which do you prefer? Would you like to have more consistency, maybe Portugal? Or would you like to have options to go to ski in the winter? Tell us.
Let's move on to our next topic, which is topic number 6. And we've touched a little bit on this, but let's dive a little deeper into the people. Tom, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned already that the Portuguese are very, very friendly. I think there's the Spanish are, for me, they're equally as friendly, but you might not perceive it at first just because of their slightly more direct approach. But I think both are pretty similar in terms of their openness. They're very welcoming to foreigners as well. The language thing sometimes a little bit of a barrier to the Spanish, I'd say, in terms of the English. Now that's changing with the younger generations, but in general, they'll always make an effort and are happy for people to come and visit their country at the end of the day and show people what all the great things that Spain has to offer. So I have no reservations in terms of the friendliness of Spanish people.
When I'm comparing people, I love to look at two age demographics. I like to look at what kind of the 20-somethings are like, and then I like to look at what the older, maybe retirees are like. And I think in this case, comparing Portugal and Spain, for the 20-somethings, it's fairly similar. I think that in Spain and Portugal, you're going to find people that are in their 20s that are going to be well educated, they're going to be friendly, they're probably going to have traveled a little bit. And if not, they're still going to be friendly and they're going to be helpful. Now, when it comes to the older people, I find the Portuguese seniors to be much more hospitable than the Spanish seniors. And I don't really know why that is, but the Spanish seniors seem to be a bit more direct, should I use that word? In their way they communicate. They're definitely more difficult to understand. The likelihood of them speaking English it's almost nothing. Whereas here in Portugal, they're gonna try to do some sign language with you if they don't know English. They're gonna be helpful. If you're trying to speak Portuguese, my goodness, they will help you. Like, they will try to help you through that process. But in Spain, if you're not on point with your Spanish trying to speak to an older person, it's very difficult, and you're probably not gonna be able to understand their response anyways. Am I right?
I think patience is patience. I can't knock what you just said.
Okay, great. So for this one, I think I'm going to give it to Portugal because Josh brought up a really good point about the different age demographics, and the people in the older age demographic in Portugal are so nice. They're so happy to help. They love kids. They love talking to kids, which we've seen. So I think I'll go ahead and give this one to Portugal.
I'm representing Portugal, baby. Let's go. Let's go.
Moving on, we have two more topics, but topic number 7 is asked anywhere you go, whether you're traveling or whether you're moving. This is huge, so the cost. Let's go ahead and focus on the cost of living. Tom, we'll start with you.
I think in Spain, compared to a lot of the rest of Europe, it's a very, very good value place to live. I think cost of living is relatively low compared to the rest of or the majority of the rest of Western Europe.
Agreed.
Especially compared to the UK, that's where obviously I was living before. Your money goes a lot further than it does in some of those other countries, France, Germany, etc. So from that point of view, and that stretches across food and drink, and also accommodation. Now, obviously, Madrid, Barcelona, they're big cities, they're big cosmopolitan international cities. They are considerably more expensive than the rest of Spain. You know, probably double the cost in a lot of instances. But overall, I'd say as a country to live in, it's got a pretty low cost of living.
Yeah, so for me, I think this is a pretty easy one. I think that we find if we're trying to take just the amount a remote worker or retiree brings over, and we're not considering what the local economy gives, because I think that's a different thing, and that's different for expats, because most expats that are, at least in Portugal, are probably not taking up a local job. A lot of people are moving here to either start a business on a D7 visa for retirement or for digital work. So you're gonna have this income, and you're asking yourself the question, would I rather take my income to Portugal or Spain? And things are just cheaper here. There are some things I hear about Portuguese people will actually cross the border and go into Spain to pick up, mainly like some products, some groceries, like bigger grocery hauls or whatnot. But I think overall, when you're talking about your housing costs, which is a bulk of what your costs are, it's cheaper.
I can't argue with any of that.
Oh, his hands are up. Is that before the bell?
I was before the bell.
Wow. Man. I thought she switched the bell off on us.
Let's go back to culture.
Okay, so surprisingly, they finished before their 2 minutes were up. But I think I'll have to give this one to Portugal. Josh brings up a pretty good point that it's just a little cheaper for the cost of living. And for those of you who are interested in moving to Portugal on a D7 visa, Josh and I actually have created a course. So that will be in the description below. You'll find that link there. So check that out, or you can email us at info@ExpatsEverywhere.com to get information about moving to Portugal. Now our final topic is quality of life. Josh, we'll start with you.
Quality of life. This is a little difficult because my time in Spain was marked by actually having a job at a company in Spain, whereas here I'm working remotely and I'm working for myself, so I'm the one that's kind of setting the hours. So taking work life out of the equation, just looking at quality of life, it's interesting because we're in COVID right now, But when we arrived, we saw that there were a lot of similarities between Portugal and Spain in terms of the cafe culture and people going out later at night. So for me, those similarities affirmed why we wanted to come back to this part of the world, why we wanted to come back to Southern Europe, because our time in Spain was fantastic and we wanted to feel that again, but in Portugal, and we got that.
Yeah, I think Spain, I'll speak on behalf of both countries here. They're both very social countries. I've already mentioned this, but you can have, a great social scene, loads of friends. People are always willing to include you in their friendship group. You go out with a couple of friends, they'll bring a couple of friends, and not so much at the moment, obviously, but hopefully, soon enough we'll be able to go back to doing that. And people really, they live for the outdoors, live for the outside, in bars, in cafes, out in nature as well. I think that's the great thing. You've got the weather to support that here as well, which is brilliant. So for me, that was one of the reasons I wanted to move back over to Spain, just for the quality of life. To be honest, it's good value, but it's the weather, it's the people, it's the food, it's just everything we've spoken about sort of rolled into one. And for me, that's why I've been keen to come back for a while, and I'm very happy to be back here. But likewise, I think Portugal is a good option from that point of view. I'd say potentially Spain has a bit more to do in terms of, especially in the bigger cosmopolitan cities, you've got some more options there. And Portugal's probably a little bit more of a quiet, enjoyable life. We're enjoying, the simple things, but doing them well.
So he got a little extra time. I've got to throw this out. Tom, I think the one thing that tips things into Portugal's favor is, I believe, and I think the data backs me up on this, that Portugal is safer than Spain. So that safety, especially at this point in our lives where we do have a kid that we're raising and we're not as young as we used to be, we can't run quite as fast as we could before. I just think that Portugal overall is safer. You don't have to worry about some of the petty crime that happens in Spain, especially in Madrid, that you do here in Porto.
Yeah, I think Portugal's been rated as sort of top 5 safest countries in the world for quite a few years running.
That's right.
I read that somewhere, but I definitely wouldn't consider Spain to be a dangerous country by any stretch of the imagination. Again, compared to some of the other big cities in Europe, for example, I think it's very safe. I never feel uneasy here in Madrid, and obviously Madrid and Barcelona are probably the two cities where there's more crimes likely to occur. Yes, they do have the petty pickpocketing. That's probably the extent of what you need to watch out for, which is obviously a negative. But there's some far worse crimes to have to avoid than that. But overall, yeah, I think Portugal, you can't argue with the facts. But I wouldn't say Spain was an unsafe country either.
Fair enough.
Well, this is a tough one because as the bell rung, I was thinking it was going to be a tie, but then Josh jumped in there a little bit after the bell, and I think that safety is going to tip those scales in the favor of Portugal.
Touching the heartstrings.
Because Portugal is just a little safer than Spain. And Tom, you bring up a good point. It's not that Spain is super unsafe, but for those of you who are interested in safety, then Portugal will tip the scales there for the quality of life.
Damn.
Well, let's let's be honest, touching on the quality of life. Both places you can go to, both countries you can move to, and you can have that beach life, you can have that city life. So we didn't want to dive too far into that right there because it's a wash again, because the geography of it all. As we've told you guys, both of us have lived in Portugal and Spain, and it's quite a fun story, the fact that over the past 10 to 12 years we've kind of flipped, where Tom used to be in Portugal and I was in Madrid. Now the reverse is happening. It's really great to be in both places. I don't think that either place is a bad choice per se. I just think at this stage of life for us, Portugal is the winner.
Both countries are amazing places to live, I'd say. I've got close affinity to both. I can't, you probably realise I found it hard to argue against Portugal, even though I'm trying to argue in favour of Spain on this video. But, for me right now, the stage of my life I'm in, Spain is the place to be. But, I think there's something for everyone in both countries, and you just need to weigh up what's most important to you.
Yeah, Tom's still partying like Enrique.
I wish.
Me too, Tom.
I hope you don't feel too battered and bruised after this one.
Well, I don't think I've lost, to be honest. We'll have to see what the viewers think. But I don't know. I'm still feeling confident.
You may have seen us wearing Expats Everywhere apparel, so if you want to check that out, you can check the shelf by Spring below, or the description will have shirts that we have from Portugal and Spain. I personally like Portugal because I think they won, so you can get this Azulejo shirt on our shelf. Now let's get moving.